Hello and welcome to the City of Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, August 24th, 2024. Call this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Alberhaski. Here. Grubovich.
Here.
Hartley.
Here.
Henderson. Johnson.
Here.
Moser.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Stallnaker. We have 2 absent tonight.
All right, thank you. First agenda item tonight is approval of minutes. Do I have a motion or any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, that will go into record. Is there any public comment for tonight? Anything that is not on the agenda? I see none. Bring it back. There is no old business today, but there is one item for new business. It is a Highway 1 district site plan for Golden China Restaurant at 1150 Brandylin Boulevard. And Tom has this. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. The site is located, this is at basically the corner of Brandylin and Prairie Parkway. You saw previous proposals for such as Viridian Credit Union, the Express Clinic, and just recently the Boulder Tap House. So these are all part of the Pinnacle Prairie Commercial South Phase 5 subdivision. The zoning is Highway 1. The project is a 3,461 square foot restaurant with a pickup window, and there's not a menu board, so we didn't really discuss stacking spaces and those things, because it'll basically, when somebody calls in an order, there'll be somebody just go to the window to pick it up. The property has access from a shared private driveway connecting to Prairie Parkway on the west and to Brandylin Boulevard on the north. All the Highway 1 standards for Pinnacle Prairie and the Highway 1 standards and Pinnacle Prairie have been met, except for the primary building elevations that does not face the street as required by the Pinnacle Prairie design guidelines and the Highway 1 architectural standards. The refuge container is highly visible from the public right-of-way, and you can see I've sort of circled where that location is. And then the sidewalk connection from Brandylin Boulevard does not provide a convenient, comfortable, or pleasant means for the public to access the main entrance. So we'll start with the view, and you can see the top illustration is the view that would be facing Brandylin Boulevard. So you have the service door. So this is basically the service entrance to the building. Also, this view, it doesn't show on here, but the refuge location would be visible from Brandylin. The south elevation, which is the opposite side, you notice that there are a lot of rhythm is created with the windows and doors, and there's a mixture of materials and the canopy, so it all provides some interest and rhythm. There are, the code requires that buildings surrounding it that you look are reviewed, compare proportion, roof shape, pattern, which in the pattern again goes to the windows, materials, things like that that provide interest, color and architectural features. I don't know why my screen left me. So the surrounding buildings, this was most recently the Boulder Tap House that you reviewed back in May, and this is the side of the building that would be facing Viking Road, and you can see there's repetitive banks of windows, there's the stone columns and things to give that pattern to the building. And then the Unity Point Express Clinic, which is at the corner of Viking Road and Prairie Parkway, you notice it is facing Prairie View Parkway, and again it has banks of windows that are addressing the street, the sidewalk that leads to the entrance of the building. And then the Viridian Credit Union at the where the roundabout starts, they've got windows. This is basically a 360 view because they have windows on all sides, they've got a door, although it's an employee entrance, there is a door on the north side. There's windows. The south end of the building has a tower that has entrances on both sides. So again, there's with the rhythm of the windows and the patterns and things like that. And then with the golden china, as I said, we saw that there's really not a lot of repetition or rhythm or looking at voids and solids, so windows openings, door openings. This is also showing the refuge container, and you can see that it's on the right side, and I just sort of put the pattern in there and the location. So if you're looking at Brandy Lynn or looking from Brandy Lynn, this would be on that side, so you would see that refuge container. And then finally, the pedestrian entrance, they're proposing a sidewalk from Brandy Lynn that focuses in on the back wall. So you go across the parking lot to the wall, then you have to make a left turn to go around to the edge of the building, make a right turn to go down to the front of the building, and then another turn to be able to get to the entrance, because the main entrance is on the southwest side of the site plan. So I'd be happy to answer more questions, or we could discuss it further if you have.
Are you going to go through the recommendation?
Okay, I can go and do the recommendation. We recommend denial of what's been presented for that, primarily because the building facade does not face the street as required by the Pinnacle Prairie Design Guidelines and does not meet the architectural standards for Highway 1. The refuge enclosure is highly visible from the public right-of-way. The sidewalk connection from Brandy Lynn Boulevard does not provide a convenient, comfortable, or pleasant means for the public to access the main entrance from the public street. Alternatively, staff would be willing to work with the applicant to look at some of these if that would be an option you'd like to look at.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for staff at this point? Is the petition?
Well, just an observation that the Veridian building doesn't have access from the Brandy Lynn side either. Their main entrance is around the other side of the building. Also, you mentioned the windows on the Veridian building. I might just say that it's a lot easier to have windows on four sides of an office building than it is a restaurant, but just my observation.
Any more questions? Does the petitioner here like to speak to this item tonight?
Good evening, Commissioner, Dan Levi, Levi Architecture, 3228 Cedar Heights Drive. We have submitted this knowing we'd had some conversations with staff. They were very responsive to our questions, and at tech review, we got comments back from them. And we, after consulting with the owner, had decided to submit anyway, knowing we would have a couple of issues to discuss, and we welcomed the opportunity to have this discussion with the commission. Mr. Sorensen brought up a couple of points we were going to make already, so beat me to it. It is a restaurant, so we will have sides of the building that have kitchen areas and coolers that will not be conducive to working windows. We could put in spandrel glass windows, so they could have glass, but not an actual window, to break up that facade and review that, as staff has pointed out, on that north elevation. I will note the north elevation has been revised, reviewed, and approved, along with the site plan and all the other sides, by Merrill Oster's Design Review Committee. So we have that already in writing. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have that. Staff would have not have pushed the project along. So it has been reviewed, again, including the site plan with the pedestrian walkway as shown, and that has been approved for that development. City has obviously their own opportunity to review. I think if any of you participate in patroning stores out there will probably, I would hope, would agree, it is not a pedestrian scale development. There is no reasonable access to residential housing in the area where someone might be walking from home, unless we want to consider potentially residents from the Western home walking a quarter of a mile to eat at a sit-down restaurant. I would argue that is highly unlikely. And either way, we will not be able to remove the sidewalk as shown We can add to it because we have to have parking lot on both the north and the south side because of the way the city had set up the Viridian Credit Union with the access easement on the site plan. We have the parking, it's a double-loaded lot on the north. That aisleway of traffic through the north end of the property that runs east to west is part of an access easement that we cannot modify. Given the elevation of that road where it was placed, that dictated everything we did from an elevation and a sidewalk and a parking drainage opportunity on that. So that is something we are bound to. We could certainly look at providing more sidewalk. It would not be accessible route because of the grade change. Again, we can't change those elevations on that driveway without, I suppose, substantial cost and removing the curb cut on the northeast corner of the property. When we pull up that aerial that has all the properties, you'll note that the two existing buildings and the third proposed building to the south of our property all face the front doors, all face in towards the drive that is between Unity Points Clinic and the Viridian Credit Union. So we have three properties that are all either existing or proposed to face inward in this development. We're being asked to be the only one of these four to face outward to a street that doesn't have direct access. So my front door doesn't face where my actual traffic's coming from. The Hongs are were very clear when we did this layout. They did not want a north-facing door because it is seen as bad luck in their culture. So we have set this up as such, thinking we were simply complying with the Oster design review requirements, as well as matching all of the other adjacent properties, either existing or proposed, in this 4-parcel complex.
Can you repeat what you said about the front door facing the wrong way, or there's some bad luck or something?
So if we look at the aerial, Viridian faces towards the drive, not Prairie Parkway.
Right.
They have frontage on 2 city streets. They don't face either door, the front door. They have windows, and we can talk about windows, but their front door does not face either one of those.
Right.
It faces the drive. Unity Points building faces the drive. It doesn't face, if we're making the argument that the building has to face the primary road, that would be Viking, but they're not asked to face Viking.
Right.
Boulder Tap does not face Viking, even though that is the primary road. They're allowed to face the private road, drive, in between Brandy Lynn and Viking. So we're the only property of the 4 that would be facing in a different direction than what the other 2 and the proposed third would do. That made no sense to us, and so we have designed this to match that development based on the precedent that was set.
I think that they had a note in here about flipping the building, but is that even, we don't have the floor plan, obviously, so I don't even know if that's something that was considered or a possibility, or.
Anything is possible.
I didn't know.
For the right amount of money.
Yeah, right.
Anything could be done. It's a standard
Yeah.
joke, right? For architects, anything can be done for the right amount of money.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible. Our client was clear that that is not their interest, which is why they had us move forward in an opportunity to present to the commission, even though we knew it would be not recommended by staff. Staff is administering the rules they have in front of them, and they're doing exactly their job. It is the commission's job, or maybe the city council's job, is to interpret that and say, in this particular situation, do we want to follow those ordinances that rigidly to say we're going to make this property do something different than we have allowed others to do in similar situations?
Right. Well, I drove out on the property today. It's in the middle, so something's not going to face something. I mean, it's in the middle of that section. It's not like it backs up to a big building or something like that. It's in the middle. So one side has to be the back or the side, or, just say that.
The dumpster or refuse area, what can be done to improve that? As far as where it's sitting now, can another spot, like you said, it's kind of out in the middle of somewhere. Can it be hid more?
We can put it, if I can use the term, front yard, since, again, we'll go back to the other 3 properties facing inward. We could put it in everyone else's front yard from a visual standpoint. We did not think that that was the best idea ever. Again, then you would see that dumpster from the front yard, the proposed front yard of our project. You'd see it from the front yard or the front door of Boulder Tap. You would see it from the front door of Viridian, and you would see it from the front door of Unity Point. We did not think that was being a good neighbor. Currently, it would be seen from those going down Brandy Lynn, going to Menards. We thought that was the lesser
Bring
of
up
the
the
evils.
site plan and show all 4 properties. I think all the refuse areas for the other properties are not along a street frontage. So I think what we were focusing in on, the requirements being the only street frontage for the Golden China site is Brandyland. The other 2, the Viridian and the Express Clinic, are all have two street fronts, and they've dressed up with windows and doors, and access to their entrances are visible from the public streets. So that was our concern, and we recognize the challenge of having this internal drive, but everything that on the north-facing side of the Golden China all really seems like the service area of the building, and none of the other properties in this subdivision have that kind of a frontage on a street-facing side, other than the back side of the clinic on Viking Road. But they had to choose. I mean, they have multiple frontages here, so they had that more challenge. The Golden China site only has one street frontage, and that's on Brandyland. So the ordinance would require them to create a similar type facade as what's been created in the other buildings on the street-facing facade. So maybe there is a solution to creating more windows and doors and dressing up that side of the building, and maybe even moving the entrance to the a little closer to and more visible, but not facing the north side. I mean, there's a lot of different options that we certainly be willing to work with the applicant on, but we didn't really have that conversation in detail about those kinds of issues.
We certainly could explore the idea of the dumpster enclosure, after we pull this up, of perhaps putting it immediately adjacent to the Viridian dumpster. It would lose some parking in front, and again, it's adding to this blocking view of the front of the building, because while the only street-facing side is north, I don't think anyone driving through there is going to know the difference between a private drive, given the specs that it was built to, versus a street. And I understand administering the ordinance as it's written, that's exactly correct. The language is exactly correct. I think from a layperson walking or driving through there, that private drive feels like a city road. They're not going to know the difference. And so all of the traffic, given we have no curb cut on Brandyland, all of their traffic is coming on the private drive. So the door, I think, would naturally face where I'm pulling in at. Boulder Tap is going to be similar. They do not have a corner, so they don't have two frontages, yet everything they're doing is going to be looking at and facing specifically north onto that private drive. So I think relocating the dumpster is certainly something we can explore by swapping out locations of parking lots, because or parking stalls, we're going to lose one or two in that extreme southeast corner, but we would be gaining one on the north side. I think that is something that we could explore in terms of relocation of that, assuming the client's on board with that. I think they would be, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
I would like to point out, too, that while they're thinking traffic coming from Viking Road, if I'm coming down Prairie Parkway from Cedar Falls or coming from Walmart, I have to go in on Brandyland Boulevard, because Prairie Parkway is a right in, right out. Sure. So it's not like everybody will be going this way. They're restricted on Prairie Parkway, where the other one they could turn both directions into the building. Or into the site, not the building.
So maybe the main entrance being a little closer on the east side of the building, for example, could work, so then it was clear the pedestrians would be a little bit closer to that side. It would be more apparent where the front entrance, or the way for the customers to get into the building. And also the entrance would then be closer, because you've got parking on both sides of the building. So obviously people are parking on the north and the south. So, if the entrance, for example, was on the east, it would be more apparent, and you could dress up the north side of the building, and people could, similar to what the clinic did, is their entrance, while it faces north, it is visible, and clearly the entranceway wraps the corner there with windows all the way around the corner and the sidewalk there, so it's very clear that the entrance, you can see it from the public street, and it's apparent how you get into the building. So people entering from the north, from Brandyland, either in their vehicles or if they're walking or biking, would be able to have a more apparent customer entrance on that side of the building.
A couple things. One, can you change our screens to show the layout of the lot? And then while you're doing that, the Boulder Tap House, I'm trying to remember, I know we approved that a while ago, but I can't remember which way that faces, and I don't know if we still have that in.
I can't change what's on the big screen. Can you
Danny,
see the
can
computer?
you show any? Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so the Boulder Tap House, their service entrance is going to be facing is opposite of where Unity Point Express's clinic service entrance is on the backside. So those are facing each other. The restaurant building on the south side has windows that got outside dining. Their entrance is facing east from the parking lot. And then on the north side, where they had the kitchen, they used Bahama shutters and things that repeated the rhythm and patterns that were on the south side of the building, even though there weren't glass windows. And that is the side that's facing the access drive.
So the service stuff is on the west, right, Tom?
Yes.
On that building, and the main entrance is on the east side, and then a lot of windows into the restaurant are on the south side, including the outdoor seating area is all facing Viking Road then.
Does, I guess I didn't notice, but does Veridian have a dumpster out there as well that's somewhere on their property?
Southeast corner.
I see.
The southeast corner, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, that little.
Yeah. Well, I do think there's some good ideas happening here. I like the idea of the restaurant going there. I understand the opposition on those three subjects, and I'm hoping that we can come up with a compromise to make this happen. It makes sense. I agree. It makes sense that the front door faces in like the other businesses on that road, in my personal opinion. I understand that's not how the regulation is written. But I would think if we maintain that and address the look of the back of the building to look more like a front of a building. Can you make two fronts on this building?
You can. It's going to even make it, I would argue, yes, and I
Make
don't
it
want
more
to,
confusing?
obviously, we're pushing for that, for
Yeah.
approval of this, and so I don't want to hurt my own argument, but at the same time, then you're making it potentially even more confusing if we have too many fronts.
True.
It is, it's on an island out there with three sides that are heavily exposed for our vehicular traffic. But I think working on something on that north elevation that does continue those rhythms, I think that is something that can be accomplished. And again, I think some investigation upon relocation of the dumpster enclosure, if that's going to be a sticking point as well.
Yeah.
We're talking about then.
Yeah, there's not a good place to put a dumpster ever.
Nope.
It's just where do you put it, and putting it next to someone else's dumpster maybe.
I was good, but the default might be, we've already got a dumpster enclosure, do we just go
Yeah.
right next to, maybe even, we might even be able to talk to Veridian, could we even put it so close that it almost, we don't want to have to worry about access easements and then legal stuff, but do we get it so close that it starts to look like, and we even match their material, so it looks like one larger one?
And having worked in
I don't know how that would work.
worked in the restaurant industry, those refuge areas are used for grease that may need to be recycled, and so that needs to be closer to the building, because a lot of times after dark, after the building's closed, you have employees that are going out with trash. So it quite honestly, being close to the building, which the same thing with Boulder Tap House, theirs is out the back door, makes sense. Then you don't want to go across the parking lot.
I mean, that keeps it cleaner, because what happens in the restaurant business is, and you're busy, you stack bags outside the back door, and then you
Right.
try and remember around midnight to go and throw them out in the dumpster. I've been there, so.
Strip, and now we've got this, and we're walking out the back door, and we're, we're going to take that all the way to the south corner of the building. So it's, in a practical sense, I'm not sure if it's ideal by any stretch. That's why we put it as close as we can to the kitchen. We, of course, have a grease interceptor and all of these things, but they most likely will have a grease dumpster, I would imagine. We have not gotten into that level of detail. And then a large, but it's large enough to accommodate a regular garbage dumpster and then a grease dumpster as well. And so we like to have those as close as possible so that we can make that mess as small as possible, which makes it more reasonable to clean and keep
Right,
clean
right.
instead of some of these that get a little out of hand.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that it makes a lot of sense, no matter what the code says, but I agree that it makes more sense to face the other restaurants, because if I drive in there and I'm looking at the Boulder Tap House and then I see the back of this other building, I'm less likely to go there as well. Where if I see the front of it from that perspective, it just seems like it makes more sense. Which, I get the Brandy Lynn thing, but it's also, if you go down to the other end in front of, well, what was originally done down there where Zavuz is, and then the other section of Strip Mall, the whole back of it faces that entrance street, and it does so that all the fronts can face each other on that end. If it went the other direction, it would be completely awkward with the rest of that whole setup. So there's just sometimes you have to have it back. It has to go somewhere, so.
If
Yeah,
you want to go
so-
that far, I mean, McDonald's is the only restaurant, or is the only facility along Brandy Lane all the way down to Walmart that actually has although McDonald's front door doesn't actually face Brandy Lane, it's
Oh.
designed to have a very frontward appearance on the north side facing. Nothing else actually faces Brandy Lane.
Right.
They're all facing perpendicular or they're facing out onto Viking.
Yeah, and I think that's the way the Boulder Tap House is too. They face to the east. Their front is actually to the east, not to the north. Their main entrance is to the east, right?
Right, the
Yeah.
north side of theirs is the kitchen side, which has the
It's on the-
other items, so it's not,
So, and their lot is a rectangle oriented east and west. Our lot is oriented north and south.
Right.
So we have some physical constraints about what we can do with that lot, and how it works, and providing the parking requirements necessary.
Right, it's
For
not,
a building that small.
it's not a super huge lot to fit all this on.
No, it's actually, this building is about half the size they wanted, but they wanted this location that bad that they were willing to reduce their dining by about 60% of what they wanted, because they really wanted to be in Cedar Falls. They're highly successful, and they really see Cedar Falls as a real great opportunity for them.
Any more questions, comments?
I'll echo the sentiments that I think that this is a great development. It'd be very exciting to have them in Cedar Falls. I do appreciate the cultural context that you provided with them expressing that they do not want a north-facing door. I think that that's very important, and I think that that's something definitely to consider when we're talking about code. I do think that it would be great to find some compromise regarding the facade of the building as well as where that dumpster location is, but I do think that this could be a great development, just with some minor tweaks to the plan.
Any more questions, comments? I mean, this is up for a vote tonight. Our other option would be to defer it and give the petitioner time to address the plan and bring it back to us versus just voting on it right now, because I'm not sure how it will end in a vote.
Might I offer a suggestion that, given staff's professional ability and their cooperation on projects, vote to approve based on contingent upon staff's review? I don't know if that legally has to come back, if that can be done. I know we've done some things that way, but I'm sure there are nuances as to how that works.
I think it's pretty common for you to do a site plan in more than one meeting. So I think the typical process for the commission would be to defer it to the next meeting, and then we'll just work with the applicant and so that the commission is giving the clear direction. I'm not comfortable with the staff. I think it should be the commission giving a nod to the final design. because it's your recommendation that goes then to council. So I think we certainly can do the same thing and work with the applicant on this and then bring it back. If you're not quite ready for the next meeting, it certainly can be.
What would be the deadline for the next, in order to get on the next meeting, as we're missing on construction season really soon?
So we'll just work with you. You don't have to. So the next meeting is August 28th. So the packet goes out the end of next week, basically, right? So
And we would be able to be on that meeting?
if everything's all ready to go for that meeting, sure.
Okay. I assume you need at least we don't like getting too tight. We'd want at least a week time to be able to compile the packet and put it through.
And then the staff needs time to review it. So I think deferring it would just allow us then to work together with the applicant to decide when you're ready to come back to the commission with an alternate
Okay,
proposal.
you had something?
No, I think
Okay.
we're ready to.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that they have the correct direction from us.
I was going to say that too, make sure we've got the right guidance so that we're all okay with the door facing the way it is. We just want the building dressed up more. I don't know if that's a motion or just an open discussion.
And possibly relocating the dumpster as well. I think that's a reasonable.
Correct. I was going to say, there's
bit by staff. Yeah.
three items. I mean, there was the which way the building faces, which I think we're willing to compromise on it. The backside of the building is attractive looking and matches the front. And secondary, and what was the secondary? The dumpster, relocating the dumpster to a better location, and then the sidewalk was the third thing. And I don't know what improvements can be done on the sidewalk or the pedestrian, but didn't know if there was an option for improving that at all.
Yeah, that had been brought up to civil, and they had addressed that via email back to city staff in their comment about that the difficulty will be, again, the building elevation is set by the existing concrete that was there on from the access easement. And we can bring a sidewalk, instead of along the building, we could try to put it in the green space. The problem is it will not be ADA compliant. So we have it along the building to keep it ADA compliant. And regardless of what direction the building faces, that sidewalk's going to have to be there because we have parking both front and back. So I'm not sure what we want to change with the sidewalk, because we say, it's circuitous no matter where we put it, depending on where you park. And half our parking's on the north and half our parking's on the south. So either way, you're not going to change this.
Is the intention of the parking on the north side for employees? Is that, yeah.
Right. But it won't be, they don't have that many employees. So we assume there will be patron parking on the north
Right.
side. But most
Generally, patrons are going to
it's
park on
going
the
to be on
south side of the building,
Very
so.
Yep. So, but either way, so we're going to have that sidewalk no matter what direction, even if we flipped the whole thing. That sidewalk's not going to change from that perspective, because then it'll be circuitous from people parking on the south. So I'm not sure what exactly we want to do to change that.
So just a suggestion is that we give the flexibility, because when you talk about the dumpster and you may have ideas about how close to the building you want that to have and how to reorient that, gives the most flexibility just to defer this application to a future meeting and try to address the three items in the best way possible. That way, it provides you the flexibility when you start thinking about moving the dumpster and all those other things. You might, maybe that main entrance is not at the southwest corner. Maybe it has to shift over a little bit or reorient the inside. So just give you enough opportunity to really think through some of those changes and make sure you're not foreclosing something by some restriction that you guys are setting right now, just as long as we know those are the three items you want to work on.
Very good.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So do we have to make a motion to defer, or how does that work?
Yep.
I would make a motion to defer to the next meeting.
I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to defer this item to our next meeting. Roll call vote on this, or just a voice vote?
I think you can just do a voice vote this one.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that will get deferred to our next meeting. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, so that's the end of the agenda items tonight. Is there any commission updates?
I don't have anything, well, maybe I'll just mention at the next meeting, we anticipate having kind of a special item on the agenda, which is the presentation of the major thoroughfare plan and connectivity standards. This is something that has been a long time coming. The major thoroughfare plan we have on the books is very old, and the city has grown quite a bit since then, so that is not useful anymore. So that's been a staff project. We did not hire any consultants to help us with that, so the staff has been working on that. So we want to roll that out for the commission to understand and hear about that. So that'll be just a special presentation of that proposed plan and some of the changes that would occur in the zoning and in the subdivision code, actually. Then we'll give time for the public to kind of absorb all that and then come back with formal meetings probably like about a month later. So that is something next time that will be kind of interesting and forward-thinking, a bigger plan than you're usually seeing with just the site plans and that sort of thing. So we
All right,
look
thank you.
forward to presenting that to you.
All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion for dismissal.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.